Have you noticed lately that things seem to be lining up in ways that feel bigger than just coincidence? Maybe you've been thinking about something, and then someone says the exact same thing 5 minutes later. Or you keep seeing a specific number, a song comes on at precisely the moment you needed it, or you bump into someone who turns out to have exactly what you were looking for. You tell yourself, that's just my imagination. But your gut keeps saying something else is going on. What if you're right? There's a wonderful concept that was introduced many years ago called synchronicity, and it describes exactly this: meaningful coincidences that carry messages from the deeper layers of what we are, from our own inner knowing, from whatever name we use for the creative intelligence behind life itself. These aren't random accidents. They're responses. And if you've been feeling like these experiences have been multiplying lately, like signs and timing and meaningful connections are appearing more frequently than they used to, there's a very specific reason why that's happening. The short answer is this: synchronicities increase when your life becomes more aligned with what you truly are. When you begin making choices that reflect your authentic values instead of your old fears, the outer world starts responding in kind. You haven't changed your circumstances yet, but you've changed yourself. And everything outside of you begins to mirror that inner movement. Think about it for a moment. The universe doesn't send signs to people who are completely asleep. It sends them to those who have started waking up. Synchronicities appear when you begin listening to yourself more deeply, when you step into a new phase of growth, when you decide, sometimes quietly, sometimes dramatically, that you're no longer willing to ignore the whispers anymore. You've made an internal shift, and your life is catching up. This might feel strange if you're used to thinking that meaning has to come from somewhere external, like an authority figure telling you what's right or wrong. But synchronicities work differently. They arrive through timing, through encounters, through the way a book falls open exactly where you need it. They don't demand obedience, they invite reflection. They don't command direction, they suggest possibility. And they're almost always accompanied by a feeling. A sense of expansion in your chest, a lightness that wasn't there before, or even just a quiet click of recognition that says, oh yes, I understand now. So why are they increasing right now? Because you've been doing something significant. You may not even recognize it yet because the real work happens internally. Maybe you started setting healthier boundaries. Maybe you stopped tolerating something you used to accept out of habit. Maybe you began trusting your own judgment more than other people's opinions. Maybe you decided that you're done waiting for permission from someone outside yourself to live a life that feels true. These things happen quietly, often without fanfare, and the outer world responds in its own language through synchronicity. If you've been feeling confused lately, like there are too many signs appearing at once, or like you don't quite know how to interpret what's happening, let me tell you something that might bring relief. You don't need to figure everything out. Synchronicities aren't puzzles waiting for your solution. They're invitations to trust the process of your own life unfolding exactly as it needs to unfold around you. When you find yourself trying too hard to decode a message, try stepping back and asking instead, how does this feel? The answer is usually right there in your body before your mind gets involved. You don't have to chase meaning through logic alone. Sometimes the most honest interpretation is simply noticing that something made you feel more alive than it did confused or anxious. That's a sign worth following. Not every coincidence will carry the same weight. Some are just coincidences, and that's fine. But when one does land with resonance, don't rush past it to the next thing on your list. Sit with it for a moment. Let yourself feel the invitation without immediately converting it into another problem to solve. There's something beautiful about how synchronicities tend to arrive in clusters. They don't usually come once and disappear. They build momentum because they're trying to get through what you've been ignoring, or maybe what you've been afraid of hearing all along. The more you notice them, the more you'll start noticing them. This isn't some magical law of attraction. It's simply how attention works. When you begin paying closer attention to your own inner life, the outer world starts speaking louder in ways that match whatever you're finally ready to hear. And here's something worth holding gently. Synchronicities are not proof that everything will always work out perfectly for you. They're proof that you're exactly where you need to be right now, moving toward what matters most. Sometimes they lead you toward new opportunities and connections. Sometimes they show up as gentle reminders to slow down or take a different path than the one you've been rushing toward. Sometimes they arrive simply as validation that something you've been questioning internally is actually true. Not because anyone else said so, but because your own life has started reflecting it back to you in unmistakable ways. If you're someone who spends a lot of time analyzing your feelings before allowing yourself to have them, pay attention now. Synchronicities rarely appear for people who are waiting to be told what is real. They appear for those who are finally willing to feel their own way through life again. And that willingness doesn't mean becoming perfect or achieving some spiritual milestone. It simply means you're choosing, in small ways and big ways, to trust yourself more than your fear. So go ahead and notice the signs. Notice how they multiply when you begin honoring what feels true inside you rather than suppressing it to fit into old patterns that no longer serve you. Notice how meaningful coincidences increase not because the universe is suddenly paying extra attention to you, but because you're finally paying enough attention back. You've made an internal shift, and everything outside of you has begun reflecting that shift in ways that feel unmistakable. This isn't about proving anything. It's about coming home to yourself. The synchronicities are simply language, your life speaking to you in timing, in encounters, in symbols that carry meaning only you can fully understand. They're not meant to be analyzed into exhaustion or forced into rigid interpretations. They're invitations to trust the unfolding of your own journey, one small meaningful moment at a time. If you're feeling uncertain about what's happening right now, try this. Instead of asking yourself whether something is supposed to happen, ask yourself how it feels when you notice it happening. Trust that answer more than any logic you can construct around it. And let the signs multiply, not because you're trying harder, but because you're finally willing to receive them as proof that your life is moving in alignment with what's most true about who you are. Keep noticing, keep trusting, keep following the thread of curiosity instead of fear. The synchronicities will continue increasing exactly as much as they need to increase. No more, no less, for a life that is finally becoming yours again.